And we're live. Yay! Well, thank you very much for joining me, Dronma, today for this Creative Life #2, the very, very second one. So yeah, we are live on YouTube and it will be up on YouTube as well for all to enjoy afterwards as well. So for those that don't know you, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay. First of all, I'm a painter.
Yes.
Though I trained at Glasgow School of Art and Sculpture, I love colour so much that, of course, the paint sort of has taken that over again. So, yeah, I taught in schools for a while. Then I was a while at home with children and goats and hens and beehives and a studio. And then I went back into teaching and lecturing, but I was lucky. I lectured only 3 days a week, which gave me 4 days a week painting.
Ah, fantastic.
Yeah. And milking goats was at 9 o'clock and 9 o'clock. Because everyone was at school, goats got milked, and everyone was in bed. And then I milked goats again. So it just worked out quite well.
There's always fresh milk to enjoy.
Oh, absolutely.
I didn't know you kept goats.
Oh, yeah, I love my goats.
All right. Wow, fantastic. So you live in Scotland?
Yes.
Yeah, and it's Scotland that inspires your painting and your landscapes.
Mainly, I really, really just started once the children grew up and they're all adults now. I took off with a tent and a car and dogs. I didn't have the goats by then. And just started touring really all the islands. And I really fell in love with the Western Isles. That's the Outer Hebrides.
Right.
And much to my surprise, years later, I found my DNA comes from the Western Isles. It comes from the island of Barra. So actually, I was homing in on my old ancestral homeland without me realizing it.
Aha, so the DNA was calling to you.
Absolutely.
Right, fantastic. So you started painting when you were quite young?
3.
Finger painting, but like thinking about it as a professional career then?
Well, actually, the 3 is quite interesting because my father was a surgeon. He also painted. And when I was 3, I had my own little fold-out stool and my watercolor pad with the gum that goes right around the edges.
Yeah.
To hurry it, and at 3 you can splash paint at a rate of knots, but no. Yeah. So it was really good memories because it was my special time.
Yeah.
And then when I was at school, I think I was about 7 when I got my first Glasgow City Award for school children. I think it was a highly commended for a penguin or something. And then I went on, and the Glasgow art galleries and museums hold competitions for children, and the schools always send, and it's not just Glasgow, it's right out Stirlingshire, down to Lanark and so on. And I won quite a few medals there, gold and silver and different things, before I went to art school.
Right.
Yeah, and I used to just paint all the time. Because I wanted to go to art school, it suddenly dawned on me I needed other exams. And when I was at school, I used to have to come to the art room to remind me to go to geography and remind me to go to English because I just was in the art room. End of story. So that was it.
All right.
I did knuckle down.
I do apologise for the noise. The builders have just decided that now is a fantastic time to cut some planks of wood outside.
Well, it's not actually sounding terribly loud here, so.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's good then. I'm just watching them going, you weren't here 10 minutes ago.
I know. Well, when I went to art school, in those days, you did a general course for 2 years, which was lovely. And in a way, the young students now don't get that. So first year you had drawing, painting, graphics design. You also did crafts, so you did ceramics and you did sculpture and you did embroidery and weaving, and you actually had a very broad course. Didn't get silversmithing because really that cost a lot of money for students.
Yeah.
Silver and gold. So by the time your 2 years was up, you could then choose which subject you were actually going to specialize in.
Oh, that's really great.
Yeah, it was really good in those days. So you had a really good grounding at the beginning. And then, well, graphics wanted me to go there, and embroidery weaving wanted me to go there. I wanted to paint, but the arrogance of a 18, 19, 20-year-old, they didn't really paint with a lot of color in those days. It was all wonderful grays, really beautiful grays.
Yeah.
I just love color too much, and there was a bit of me thought, if you're going to be gray, you might as well learn something you don't know.
Yeah.
Which was how to work with clay, how to cast, and so on. So I chose to do sculpture. That had an awkward effect in as much as it added another year onto your whole course.
Yeah.
My mother was a widow, so it was quite a thought to take on board.
Mm.
But anyway, so I did sculpture, and I'm so glad I did, because my hands also, as well as brushes, move into the painting.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I have done some sculpture since, not often, because you can block the drains in your house.
Oh, right. Oh, dear.
So, so the one thing I did relatively recently was a bronze head of Helen Duncan, the medium, who was the last woman tried in England for witchcraft, and it's in the Smith Art Gallery and Museum in Stirling. And my artist proof is the commissioned head actually is owned by the people of Callendar, and it's somewhere, I don't know where it is, but the museum in Stirling has the artist proof of Helen's head.
Ah, right.
Yeah, she was quite a plump lady.
Quite a lot of clay then.
Well, the funny thing is, I did have photographs to work from, but you don't get the back of the head.
Right, yeah, you've got to kind of make that up.
How her hair is and so on.
Mm.
And oddly enough, her niece was still alive, and she came over, and I kind of thought, in kind of wartime, they used a kind of string
Yeah.
and the hair into it. And actually, the niece came over and told me that I had done the hair correctly from the back.
Ah,
So that was good.
fantastic.
Painting is my main love.
Yeah, yeah. And you're best known for your paintings.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
I'm known as, I think they call it, a new Scottish colourist.
Mm.
Because there was the Glasgow boys and the Glasgow girls, and there were the Scottish colourists before, but there's quite a few of us now that are totally seduced by colour.
Yeah. Oh. So, yeah, I mean, I absolutely love that painting behind you. I'm just like, that's amazing. Is that your drying rack behind you? Is that how you usually work? You dry your stuff?
Well, painting takes quite a while because you put in layers.
Yeah.
And so there's some there that are getting towards their final layer, but
Yeah.
you've got to wait between layers, or it can dry too fast, and then you get that almost like, what's that desert in America where the ground all cracks?
Crackling, yeah, where it crackles.
Yes, and that would happen if you have too fast a layer on top of a slower layer.
Right, okay.
The old
Yeah.
macros of that, where it's all gone funny. So the secret is to start with your faster drying layers, let them dry, and move up to your oil layers after that.
Right, okay. So do you start with acrylics then and then move into oils on top? No, just...
I could do if I could be, but I don't. I just love oil. Oil is like satin.
Mm.
It feels lovely, whereas acrylic is a bit like denim. So
It is, it's very hard.
something, well, yes, it is hardening, and it dries so fast. And
Yeah.
I mean, watercolor is more fluidity, but it's more like gauze because it doesn't have that thixotropic, luscious butter.
Yeah, it's very, very thin watercolor. You kind of just have to build it up and build it up, and okay, it's very transparent.
It does have the building up layer, which I like doing anyway.
Mm.
But oil paint, I like because people can hang it anywhere and it won't fade with the sun.
Yeah.
Whereas watercolors, you've got to make sure they're not in sunlight and all this sort of stuff. So I quite like oil painting.
Yeah, it's a very robust medium.
Mm. Except I remember I was on a tidal island off Arisaig, and I ran out of turpentine. I was out in the rocks, and I had to go all the way back across the But my painting, every midge in the neighbourhood lands on me. So, and I had to get off the rocks, cart the canvas back over, cart everything over. The tide was coming in. The dog refused to go through the water. I mean, it was just... So now I tend to go and stay in... now it's a van. I've got a bed van. And then you stay there quite a long time, so you absorb it. And then a few sketches and photographs. It doesn't really matter. It's more the absorption of the place. And you know how some people, I don't know what it's called, but you've got one sense and it actually triggers another. It's got a name.
Synesthesia.
Thank you. That's it. Anyway, I was happily painting up here, and just the glorious. I mean, the central heating was on right enough, so it was warm, and I was on the beach, and I could smell the salt. I could hear the birds, though I'm in my own studio.
Yeah.
And I came trotting downstairs, humming a happy tune, and my son said, "You sound happy." I said, "What a gorgeous day!" And he said, "Mum, look out the winter. Look out the window. It's a pea super." It was thick November fog, but I was on sunshine.
Yeah.
And the birds, and of course we get seagulls here as well. So, no. You know, to taste salt when you're painting in oil is obviously this kind of. I think I can go back to where I was.
Yeah.
And it's a lot easier than carting wet oil paintings about the world.
Yes. one oops, and then you're just wearing it.
Well, yeah, I do have my clothes do almost stand up on their own. You paint something, you go like that, and you carry on. So.
Yeah, or you go like this, just to get your hair out your face, and then suddenly it's...
Yeah.
And then you're going to wipe it off, and you're just smearing it over your face instead.
Painting, really, some of the colours dry quicker than others. The reds dry off a lot quicker, a lot slower than the blues. And as a result, you can have a painting really surface dry, but not underneath if the paint's thick.
Yeah.
I have heard that some of Rembrandt's paintings, where the thick and pastel, are still damp in the middle.
Really?
I have heard that. I don't know if it's true. I think you'd have to check that with a... But, you know, why not? A sealed thing could have a bit of damp in the middle.
It could do, yeah. I'm not an oil expert. I don't know.
No, I love your stuff, Gemma. It's really coming on lovely.
Oh, thank you. I'm trying. I'm really interested to hear about how you balanced your art career with your family life when you had younger kids.
When they were very, very young, I remember sending my poor brother out with a pram and saying, "Don't come back for 3 hours." But actually what happened was I was rushing the art and I was rushing the kids, and I ended up having a bonfire and burning everything.
Right, okay.
I decided for a period of time to be a mother.
Right, yeah.
Really be a mother.
Yeah.
And, knowing that they would grow up. But by the time they were at school and things, they could put up with, you know, me going down the garden. I had in that time, I had a big shed down the garden.
Mm.
Though I remember my poor son sitting for a portrait, and that was fine, and it was lovely. It was, the sun was coming through one of his ears, so it was kind of.
Oh.
But I lost the likeness somewhere, and I had to scrape it all off, and he had to. But he was promised and bribed and corrupted with, "I will hire you a video if you do sit even longer." So I think sometimes sticks in his memory rather vividly. He said that was a real cheap payment for sitting 2 hours. So when they got bigger and they all started doing their own thing and sitting in their own rooms doing their own things, it wasn't a problem.
Yeah.
And because I had them when I was quite young, I actually was quite young, if you know what I mean, to paint.
Yeah.
I think at one point it was really hard because I was painting so much that I hardly saw them, even though they were away from home in their own homes. It was like, you know, I'm painting, I've got to paint, mainly because there's a deadline.
Yeah.
And this has got a deadline of, I think it's about the second week in September.
Right, yeah.
You know, whether I like it or not, I've got to. I mean, I could be on the Isle of Skye this week with my daughter and her family, but
yeah,
I can't.
deadlines. Yeah, yeah.
Totally. Mhm.
So now that you've come so far in your artistic journey, is there somewhere that you'd like to take your painting next? Is there like, or do you have any plans? Do you just let it come naturally?
Um, well, I love painting the land. I really feel a Celtic woman.
Mm.
I've got Irish ancestry and island ancestry and so on, and Great Glen ancestry, Loch Ness. And I really feel bonded to the land. And so I'm happy to paint that. My spiritual painting, I tend not to sell. So they
Yeah,
don't go into galleries. So, on my website, you can see the Tibetan tankas, and they're a totally different way of painting because you don't show a brushstroke. And
yeah,
some of them take about 2 years to paint one painting. Um, my eyesight couldn't do it now because it really works in miniature and glazing with gouache, which is not the natural glazing material. Um, so some of them are in a retreat center, and one's in Tibet, and one's in Dharamsala.
mm.
And then, of course, being a Celtic woman, I love the Celtic mythology and stuff. And they tend to be given to friends who like the same entity I happen to be painting.
Yeah,
So I may put them into print. I might
yeah,
do that because that's not the actual painting.
mm.
The paintings, the actual painting is the thing that carries the energy.
Yeah,
So I don't know. I'd like a wee bit more time to do some more of them actually. But at
yeah,
the same time, you are doing them if you're painting the land. If
mm.
you're painting Loch Ness, of course, there's the goddess Ness. So I mean, come on, you're painting her, albeit
Yeah,
not as such.
yeah. Not personified, just
And the Corryvreckan and Whirlpool, I'm wanting to get there when it's actually the full maelstrom.
mm.
I've walked to the top of Jura and seen it from there. And the day I went out there, it was a mill pond, even though they didn't actually know they were going to go. And, so, but I'd like to go when it's actually whirling and then a bit risky.
Living life on the edge.
Well, I don't know. I just love it. I mean, I like people, and of
Mm.
all of the arts to choose is the one where you sit in your own.
Yeah,
It's really funny. I have
yeah,
a good friend who's a painter and a musician, and she's actually is quite a shy lady, so she's happy to sit at home. But I was very fortunate in lecturing at the college because after being on my own, not talking to anybody, I would go and talk about something I'm passionate about.
yeah.
Actually get paid.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I know the feeling. It's actually quite a lonely profession when you think about it, because you spend so much time sitting on your own in your studio making this thing.
Yes, but you don't realize you're alone.
No, you just kind of,
You're busy in the thing, and also
yeah,
time does crazy things. Time. I don't know what it is about time, but you think you've been an hour, and you find you've been about three. Uh,
yeah,
it just doesn't.
yeah,
It's funny. When I'm on the islands and traveling around in my van, I never know quite where I'm going to stay. And
mm,
of course, on Lewis and Harris, the Machers, you just camp. There's no caravan sites. It's rough camping.
right.
But every little harbour has a tap with fresh water.
Oh, that's nice.
And even though they're tiny harbours, and every little town usually has a public toilet you can empty things in. Well, you don't. It's not as rough as you'd think. You've got fresh water every day, and I just love it. You know, my old van died its death this year, and I've got a newer van which is smaller, but
All right.
it still fits the futon.
Yeah. Oh, you put a futon in the back and
Just the
everything.
mattress.
All right.
My framer had built me a futon width um, container that had recycle boxes as food storage, clothes, paints,
Yeah.
and the futon on top of it. I couldn't stand up in the van. It was just a Ford Transit long wheelbase.
Right.
Now I've got a Berlingo, but it'll take the mattress on the floor, so it'll be more crawling than being able to sit.
Yeah.
And then in the old van, I sliced the wall so I could be in my bed and sketching and looking at the sea out the window.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I could be in a
If it's raining.
Yeah, I had and a steering wheel was a great easel.
I guess so. I guess it's at the right angle,
Yeah,
you
you
know.
dump it on you and you're sorted.
Yeah.
It gets a bit messy, but that's.
They'd be like, anybody looking at it goes, what's happening here? There's just paint everywhere.
I know. No, I'm just so lucky. I mean, how many people actually work and actually manage to pay their bills on their own personal passion?
Yeah.
It's just pretty amazing, actually.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to do this kind of a podcast, talking to people who actually do make a living off it.
It's risky. It's risky.
It is. Yeah.
There was one company that used to print me, and they had a stable of horses and also a stable of artists.
Okay.
Because even the print company didn't know who was actually going to take off or not.
Right, yeah.
And I read somewhere, I think it was in one of the Sunday supplements, they had a pie chart, and it's 5% of artists can make a living off it.
Right, yeah.
So
you need to make it to that top 5%.
Well, it's odd. It's funny. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you ever thought about how all these new technologies are helping people, like with Patreon and Kickstarter and all those things? Patreon is something where people can pay you per piece of artwork to support your artwork, not necessarily to own it.
Oh, I've never heard of that.
Yeah, it's a really interesting idea. It's for people, and there's a wonderful artist called Wiley Beckett at the moment that I back on Patreon, and she puts up works in progress. And for every work in progress she puts up, I pay her $1.
Really?
And she gets a few $100s per work in progress pick. And then when she releases a final image, she'll usually give it as a downloadable image to the people who've backed her work in progress pics. I think I've lost you, Dronma. Oops, I think we've lost connection. All right then. Well, I guess that's that then. Yeah. Well, I'd like to say thank you to Dronma. So I'll give her a ring after I stop this broadcast and say thank you. But thank you guys for watching, and I shall pick that up next time I talk to Dronma if she wants to come on again. Thank you very much for watching, and we shall talk next week. Bye.